was 50 years ago today when the Vietnam War ended with the evacuation of Americans and thousands of South Vietnamese. The event caused many to run from the new regime, and some ended up in places like Southern California. We are joined live by Dr. Nguyen to talk more about the fall of Saigon. He's an assistant professor of Asian Pacific Studies at State Dominguez Hills. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, very important day in history. So take us back to 1975 and talk about some of the major factors leading up to this moment.
Right. I think one of the biggest factors in considering this moment is the withdrawal of American support for the war. And that began, that culminated in 1973 with the signing of the Paris Peace Accords. In the lead up to that, so then American was involved basically from 1965, or directly involved from 1965 until 1973. And towards the 1970s, with the under President Richard Nixon, there was a Vietnamization process in which military combat duty shifted from Americans to South Vietnamese forces. And by 1973, with the anti-war movement, wavering support in Congress and whatnot, you see massive level of support just being pulled away from South Vietnam.
Right.
And starting in 1973, you see, a lack of material, a lack of weaponry, a lack of combat capabilities for South Vietnamese forces. And by 1975, with the invasion of communist forces across the 17th parallel in January, communist forces were able to take over, central region cities and into Saigon by April. It was like about a 3-month offensive, which is massively fast for any military campaign.
And
so,
this is,
yeah.
You're an expert on this, but this is not a history that a lot of people are super familiar with. What are some of the misconceptions that you still hear surrounding the end of the Vietnam War?
Right. Well, within the historiography of the Vietnam War, the major voice that's largely missing are South Vietnamese voices. But then when we talk about the Vietnam War, it's largely an American story of how the United States intervened in Vietnam, what they did, and more or less South Vietnamese people, the country of South Vietnam, is more or less a backdrop for American action. For the fall of Saigon, what is important, I think, to know is that this was the end of a 20-year conflict, but at the same time, it was also the end of a nation. Right? South Vietnam was a nation state. There was a society, there was a culture, there was everything that constituted a society, a national society there. And what happened in 1975 was the collapse of the society. And ultimately, what this point in time demonstrates is not simply just, the end of military conflict, but, this end of an entire existence of a people of what they know as a society, what they know as the reality.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're talking about an ending, but focus more on that transition for many Vietnamese people, those who left and came to America, those who stayed. What did life look like after that?
Right. Following 1975, North Vietnam and South Vietnam became reunified under they renamed it the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. What the government did was that it sought to institute or create a socialist society in Vietnam. And so there were policies that changed the economy, there were policies that changed politics, and there was a deliberate erasure of the old regime, right? Erasure of its politics, its culture, music, art, literature, and whatnot. They tried to sort of erase that element of the past. So then a large number of former South Vietnamese soldiers, politicians, leaders, civil society leaders and whatnot were put into what's called re-education camp. And the strategy there was to re-socialize these individuals to become productive member of a socialist society. These re-education camps were more or less labor camps. A large number died. My father was actually one of the folks who was put into re-education camp for 8.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so then at the same time, there were attempts to sort of like transform the society to develop new economic zones with depopulate the urban centers to develop the hinterlands. And because of these conditions and also the outbreak of the Third Indochina War in 1979, this sort of chaos, political instability, economic deterioration led to a massive amount of people attempting to leave Vietnam, and a lot of them coming from the South.
Dr. Nguyen, we
yeah,
are out of time, but thank you so much for sharing your personal connection to this. I know you could talk about this forever. We are happy that you shared with our viewers this very important moment in history. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.